Welcome to another edition of Preps Plus Extra. How you doing? I'm Mark Stewart, Preps editor of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Joining me again, my tag team partner, Jared Radcliffe, sports editor of Now Newspapers. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Mark.
Yeah. So as we enter, we're to the midpoint of February. The boys' tournament is about to start. We talked favorites last week. Germantown, Milwaukee Vincent, Milwaukee King, Milwaukee Washington. Let's kind of mix it up a little bit. There are always a few surprises every year in terms of the tournament and who advances. So I guess let's start there. When you look at the brackets, give us a team or two that in your mind might be someone that a week from now we're saying, hey, we didn't realize they might be going this far.
Well, I think if you're looking at for a first-round upset, there's a really curious local rivalry between Menominee Falls and Sussex Hamilton on the boys' side. That's a 2-7 matchup. Hamilton's lost 2 games all year. They'd certainly be the favorite, but they've struggled a little bit with Falls. They beat them by 5 points one time, 3 points another time. They're going to be prepared for it so that they don't let any sort of slip up. This isn't going to be a game they're looking past. And I think everyone sees that segment of the bracket as there being a glass ceiling because Germantown is the top seed in there. So it seems like anybody who emerges from there is going to have to pull the upset of the season easily to beat Germantown. But I do think that's something that you want to keep an eye on. You got to be really careful if you're Hamilton, knowing that team is giving you a run for their money, even though they're a 7th seed. Right.
One team that kind of strikes me as a possible upset, not in the first round, but down the road is Milwaukee Bayview, assuming they get past Whitnell. They're a team that could face New Berlin Eisenhower, the Woodland West champion, in the regional final on the road. But Bayview, they're a team that they've got a star player in Carlin Dupree, who's a Division I kid who's going to North Dakota State, I believe. Sorry, one of those two. He's going big time. But they got a star player, and they played a really good schedule. And they played, teams like King and Hamilton. They played pretty well against those. So that's one team to me that, and the other thing with Bayview is they're dropping down to Division II this year.
Right.
Obviously, the competition in that bracket is still tough, but it's one of the reasons that they intrigue me.
A couple teams in D2 that have the tradition to go with it. Whitefish Bay just beat a Homestead team really soundly in the North Shore Conference. They've had a tough schedule all year. They're a solid team, and they could make some noise. They'd have to get through Milwaukee, Washington, which is going to be tough, seeing as Washington shared the City Conference Championship. But Whitefish Bay showed us a few years ago they were capable of going the whole way, even though they were a lower seed. Milwaukee Pies is another team that has a couple outstanding players, Levi Bradley, Donovan Jackson, both scoring in excess of 17 points a game. They have Tosa East in the first round. They'd have to knock off a 1 seed to keep playing, but that's certainly a team that has the talent to make some noise. And then if you jump back up to Division I, Brookfield Central has got to be one of the best 3 seeds imaginable. They've got 2 city teams ahead of them, but that's a team that shared the Greater Metro title. They've only got a couple losses, and their 1-3-1 zone, I think, is capable of beating just about anybody.
Yeah, that zone is one of those things that if you don't see it a lot, like teams in the Greater Metro do, it can really be a challenge to go up against. And we saw that a few years ago with Milwaukee Marquette when they got to state.
Definitely.
That was the defense that really sparked them to get to that point. A couple other things before you switch gears here. I agree with you about Milwaukee Pius. Levi Bradley, Donovan Jackson. Anytime you have great players who can make things happen when even you're playing great defense, that to me that's a scary team. One other team that maybe we don't think of as an underdog, we're seeing St. Catherine's down in Division III. Looks like they're going to be headed for a matchup with Brown Deer, maybe in the regional final. And maybe all those years of experience and going deep in the tournament, maybe that'll help them. So I guess we'll see how it unfolds.
Absolutely.
Well, one team that is not an underdog is Milwaukee Hamilton. The Wildcats did not win a share of the City Conference title with King and Washington this year, but they did upset Milwaukee Vincent to end the regular season. Let's hear what Coach Tom Diener and Junior David Burrell had to say about the win.
A team like Vincent, they're going to stick around, and we knew that they were going to come at us with some pressure, and initially we didn't handle it very well, and they scored some baskets off our turnovers, and we were able to regain our composure and get a couple easy baskets against their press and maintain the lead. This is probably the most exciting game that I've had at Hamilton. This is my 5th year at Hamilton, and the place was packed.
It was a crazy crowd tonight, real crazy. It was live, wild, it was fun. going back and forth. And I was glad our fans showed up on both ends. It was real fun out there.
Well, switching sides to the to girls basketball, you know, JR, one of the common themes of this year is really the fact that we were trying to find out maybe if there was that dominant team, you know, in the area that, you know, we were sure, you know, was going to be at the state tournament. And I guess, you know, now that as we end the regular season, in your mind, has there been a team that's, you know, maybe emerged that in your mind has really sold you on the fact that they can go far in this tournament and get to Green Bay rather, not Madison?
Yeah, not necessarily in the Milwaukee area. Now, I do think if you look at the brackets, a team like McGuanago, a top seed, has a really favorable draw. I think that it would be, at this point, a little bit of a surprise if they didn't get to at least Green Bay. Sussex Hamilton has a great opportunity to get into the sectional final, but they would meet De Pere, which is undefeated and the #1 team in the state. And then you got Oak Creek, who I think is a pretty good bet to get to Green Bay. But again, of those three teams, if you were to pit them against each other in a round-robin tournament, I wouldn't be surprised if they all went 1-1. It's really hard for me to pick between the three of them and say this team is more dominant than the others. I think if you're talking about the most dominant teams in the state, it's not coming from the Milwaukee area. We're talking about New London in Division II, the defending champs, De Pere in Division I, most likely. Now in D2, you've got that New Berlin, Eisenhower, Milwaukee Pius rivalry going in the conference. They split during the regular season. I think both of those teams are capable of getting all the way to Madison. They're going to have to go through each other to do it, so we'll see if that actually comes to pass. But outside of talking about Heritage Christian down in D5, who seems like still the team to beat, in D5, there really isn't somebody that you can point to and say top team in the state for sure.
Yeah, and I agree with you about Heritage Christian. I mean, I think they're a pretty good bet to get to Green Bay this year. You know, one thing you were talking about Pius and New Berlin Eisenhower. You know, one thing that struck me, especially about Pius when I saw them earlier this year, and Eisenhower is a great defensive team too, is that, you know, even though those teams maybe don't have the star power that they've had in recent years, they play great defense, and that's one of those things that sometimes get overlooked. And I think that if there's one reason they go, get to Green Bay and even advance when they get there, it's going to be because they play, fantastic defense. In Division I mean, I really do like, the way Milwaukee Riverside's come on. They had an impressive victory over Janesville Parker down in Janesville a couple weeks ago. They haven't lost since they started the year 1-4, and actually their last loss, I believe, was to Oak Creek by a point. And I think the way the brackets match up, it's either going to be Riverside or Oak Creek, Divine Saviors in that bracket too. So one of those great teams is going to get knocked off. Well, I guess, JR, that's why this is an exciting time of year, because we don't have all the answers.
Nope, definitely not.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out what happens in the tournament, and we'll talk about it next week on Preps Plus Extra. And for more Preps Plus action, be sure to watch me and Lance Allen every Sunday night on today's TMJ4. Till next time, that's JR Radcliffe, and I'm Mark Stewart. Take care.